A box and whisker plot is a visual display of the 5-number summary. It starts with a horizontal axis that includes the range of the data. So if I was going to make a box and whisker plot for this 5-data summary, then I would need a horizontal axis going from 2 to 30. This is the data from one of the previous examples from a previous video, and it involved the ages of a group of people. So when I make my horizontal axis, I also need to label it with the variable name. So that looks something like this, where I first draw the axis and make sure that it covers all of my data. So I have an axis going from 0 to 32, and then all of these numbers will fit there. Then to make the box and whisker plot, I usually like to start with the median, because that's going to be right in the middle. So with a ruler, we're going to draw a little bit of a bigger line for the median. And then we'll do the same thing for quartile 1. So quartile 1 is at 8. So I go to my axis at 8 and draw a line at 8. And then we also have quartile 3 at 24. Okay, and then we're going to do the whisker part. And the whisker parts go at the minimum. So there's one of my whiskers and the maximum. Sometimes these are dots. I think in your textbook they use dots. Some people leave them without the whisker part, but it's better to have a little bit of an edge so you know exactly where it stops. And then we're basically going to make the box by joining the first quartile and the third quartile together and crossing over the median. And we make the whiskers by drawing lines out to the maximum and minimum. And that's our box and whisker plot. And this one is very symmetrical. The data was kind of set up to be symmetrical, so it looks like everything's all even. And you can still see that this is 25% of the data, this is 25% of the data, this is 25% of the data, and this is 25% of the data. So it divides the data up into quartiles just like the data summary did. And this middle part where the box is, that's our interquartile range. It's not always so symmetrical. Data that's completely symmetrical like that is a little bit rare with a box and whisker plot because we're generally using box and whisker plots for data that isn't symmetrical. Let's look at a data set that isn't. Here's just a few numbers. This came from some context, but I forget what it was. They're just right now the data summary that we're going to use to see what a box and whisker plot can look like. We'll start again with the median at 5. So I've made my axis already, and I've left this one unlabeled because I forget what it is. And we'll put the median at 5, and then the quartile 1 is at 4, and the quartile 3 is at 5.5, and then the minimum at 0, and the maximum at 6. So then I join my box parts together and go out to my whiskers. So here you can say it's not symmetrical. You still have 50% of the data is still in this middle box part, 25 on the lower side and 25 on the higher. So it just means that this upper part is very clustered together. They're all 25% of the data has a value between 5 and 5.5. Another 25% of the data has a value between 4 and 5. Here we have a stretched out piece. That means there's quite a variety of numbers. 25% of the data is going to range from 0 to 4. And then again, 25% ranges from 5.5 to 6. This is still 25% of the data is here and 25% is here and so forth, but just this data is more spread out than these groups of data here. So this would be an example of a negatively skewed set because it's stretched out towards the negative side and then peaks over here and falls fairly quickly. So that's another way of drawing negatively skewed data. It's even possible for some of these values to be the same. Let's just say that instead of a quartile 3 of 5.5, I had a quartile 3 of 5 here. And then you can see the median and the quartile 3 are the same. So what happens to our box and whisker? It means that we have to get rid of that line here. And so we've actually got the median and the quartile 3 on the same line. That means when I join my box part, I only have part of the box. It looks like I just have one piece. And the whisker would go from 5 all the way to 6 for that 25%. So this is still 50% of the data, but it isn't split into two sections. Basically, 25% of the data is the value 5. And so you've got 25% here and 25% between 4 and 5. So whenever you see a box and whisker plot like this, you know that the median is the same as either the quartile 1 or the quartile 3. And you're looking at 50% of the data in that middle part. That's it for box and whisker plots.